Mr. Archleaf, District 7, is also a member of our committee and is in attendance with us today. Unfortunately, Madam Clerk, Mr. Green, who is the other member of our committee, has jury duty today, and unfortunately cannot be with us, and I'm really disappointed that he cannot be, because he has been an integral part of what we are trying to do. He has introduced legislation to try to affect some of the issues that we encounter in our neighborhoods with the problematic properties ordinance, and I'm disappointed that this is the second consecutive meeting that he hasn't been able to be with us. But is this microphone active?
You might want to go a little bit closer to you.
Okay. I think that makes a difference.
Got it.
Yes. It's good to see a lot of our community residents here today. Of course, with our professionals from the city and other stakeholders, neighborhood association presidents and others who are interested in this issue as we are. We are here today. The purpose of this committee was formed as a result of the study that was done by a company called STR, and that company did this study to make recommendations to the city of Montgomery as to what we can do with abandoned properties, distressed properties, rental properties being brought up to standard, and related issues. This is the report, and I keep it with me and read it frequently because it's a very thorough and very well written report that identifies many of the issues that we want to try to address in the city. I will take just a moment to read from the script of a PowerPoint presentation that we have prepared for our neighborhoods, and it more or less gives an overview of why we're here, why this committee exists, and why we're making the proposals that we have made so far with regard to our neighborhoods. There is a growing concern, as most of us know, in our city, that the city is not being as attentive as people want it to be to our neighborhoods. In recent years, many of our traditional neighborhoods have begun to show signs of blight and neglect, and thus far, the city has not had an organized program to combat these negative issues that too many of our neighborhoods are experiencing today. Problems with excessive litter on the streets, junk, trash, debris along the main thoroughfares and in our neighborhoods, dilapidated structures, begging for demolition, abandoned commercial buildings, boarded up houses, irresponsible landlords, disrespectful tenants. The negative tailspin is seemingly out of control. In an effort to show or to slow this momentum of the growing blight in our city, we've come up with some proposals that will hopefully be at least the beginning of a sustained effort or campaign to reduce the level of blight that continues to grow, that's threatening to consume all of us if we don't act, and we really don't act now. And as mentioned in our previous meetings, the program which we would like to propose consists of three major components. If enacted, I believe simultaneously with some semblance of commitment, that is to enforce it as well, I think we can see a slowing of the growth of these mounting challenges that we're facing in our city today. First, we've talked about a program to rid our neighborhoods to the extent that we can of these state-owned tax delinquent properties. Many of our neighborhoods are consumed with them. I have recently had asked Ms. Watson to provide maps of some of our more distressed neighborhoods in District 3. The King Hill neighborhood in North Montgomery, where I was born and raised. The Newtown neighborhood, also in North Montgomery. And also the Centennial Hill neighborhood in the vicinity of Alabama State University. The point of asking for these maps was simply to show a delineation of the properties that are productive and owned by someone, and someone's doing something with them. And the state-owned tax delinquent properties, so those properties that have gone into tax delinquency state and have ultimately been acquired by the state of Alabama, which, by the way, does not want any of them, and does nothing to care for them, does nothing to maintain them, and there's nothing the city can do to force the state of Alabama to do what we can force individual property owners to do. So many of our neighborhoods have these properties. King Hill, the map shows many of them. Newtown, the map shows many of them. Centennial Hill, also, the map shows many of these state-owned tax delinquent properties. There are literally hundreds of them throughout the city of Montgomery. So we want to do what we can do. We want to facilitate a program. We did adopt a resolution with Montgomery City Council in, I think, 2016 that copies of models, the program that was put into effect in Mobile, Alabama, that the idea of which was to acquire as many of these state-owned tax delinquent properties as is practical, and to create a program for eligible developers, people who would be interested in taking these properties and doing something productive with them, with a plan presented for the transfer of those properties and a timeline attached to the transfer of those properties, so that we could be certain that something would be done in a productive fashion with these properties, to get them back on the tax rolls and make them productive parts of the community once again, and to clean up aesthetically an area that had previously been a blighted area. The other thing we wanted to do was to address the large number of vacant commercial and residential properties that we have in our city. And also, the third thing we wanted to do with the committee was to adopt some uniform standards for the maintenance and the upkeep of rental properties in our city. As our city continues to grow, we're beginning to experience big city problems. And the big city problems, some of the largest big city problems have to do with rental properties that are not being properly maintained, or properties that are really not fit to be rented. And without any program in the city of Montgomery, any organized program to address those issues, we have a serious problem with rental properties that are not up to standard. And we need to look at those to create a rental registry or some kind of registration program for the rental properties, and to look for ways to hold these landlords or the property owners accountable also for the behavior of those people in those properties, because I think that one of the major problems also that we face, and that's why Mr. Green, I think, was so aggressive in his promotion of the problematic properties ordinance. We have so many instances where rental properties are becoming havens of negative behavior in many of our neighborhoods. And as we know, one house can ruin a block, and many blocks can ruin an entire neighborhood with certain types of behaviors that are taking place. And we're trying to grapple with ways to hold people who own properties accountable for the behaviors of the people who rent those properties and who live in those properties. So if we can do this, and we can, and we certainly will, we shall, because we have a deep-seated commitment to move forward with this to make a difference, because we really do need to make a difference. We're committed to creating redevelopment opportunities by expeditiously returning abandoned and tax delinquent properties to productive use and to the property tax rolls. We are committed to abating blight by reducing the number of vacant or abandoned properties in the city, and rejuvenating neighborhoods by increasing the quality of affordable rental units through some kind of registration process and periodic inspections possible also of those properties by the city of Montgomery. So that's basically why we exist. And we have talked about the rental property registration ordinance, which we originally put on the table. And we pulled it from the table when we received the consultant's report that pointed out to us that we had already the tools in our wheelhouse to address those issues through the business license ordinance. And we really didn't need another ordinance. Why pass another ordinance when we already had something on the books to address that? And so we have talked to the business licensing division of the finance department to look at ways to do that. And they have done some investigating and discovered that there are some cities, Huntsville among them, that already have a business licensing requirement for leased or rental properties. So it's not an outlandish idea. It simply says that people who rent properties are also in some kind of business. It's real estate business. And they should be subject to the business licensing requirements that all other businesses are subject to. So we've discovered that we don't need the rental property licensing ordinance. We need to enforce the business license ordinance and those provisions of it that relate to it. And so I've kind of summarized here, Mr. Lee, Arch, the key provisions of the business license ordinance that make it clear that the business license ordinance has the teeth, and it certainly has it gives the business licensing professionals the authority to regulate rental properties. It accomplishes everything that a rental license ordinance would want to accomplish, and that would be registration, goal number one. And of course, buying a business license registers you, the city, as the owner of rental properties that are renting properties to our citizens. It also has other provisions you might be surprised to know that will even eliminate the need for the problematic properties ordinance that we passed that Mr. Green promoted. His ordinance is supposed to address problem behaviors in properties, and loud music, loud parties, gunfire, fighting, violence, whatever it is that takes place in rental property. Well, the provisions of the business license ordinance gives the business license people that same authority. And I'm going to just briefly go through what the major provisions of the business license ordinance that would grant the city the authority to regulate rental properties and also to regulate problem behaviors. The rental property licensing through the business department would give the city the authority to grant, to suspend, to revoke, or to refuse to grant a license to operate a rental real estate business in the city of Montgomery. The city would have the authority to ensure that properties are in compliance with health, building, and property maintenance standards. The city has the power to regulate rental housing through the existing business license ordinance. Here are the key provisions of it that would relate to what we're talking about. The business license ordinance grants the city the authority to regulate real estate businesses, including the renting of real estate. That is the exact language of the ordinance. The business license ordinance grants no exemptions for owners of detached single-family houses, owners of a specific number of properties, or properties managed by nonprofits. The business license ordinance requires absentee owners to name a local agent to inform the city who is responsible for that property in the case of an emergency. All of this is in the business license ordinance. The business license ordinance requires rental property owners to observe the local codes and to pay any outstanding debts and obligations to the city of Montgomery. The ordinance also names a person called the license inspector, who reports to an individual called the revenue administrator. This would be the person responsible for ensuring that owners are compliant with local codes and ordinances as a part of the annual relicensing of businesses. The business license ordinance gives the business license component the authority to revoke or withhold a license, giving the city leverage in enforcing property maintenance standards. The business license ordinance states that a business in violation of the city's ordinances may have its license revoked or non-renewed for cause at the discretion of the official responsible for issuing the license. When we frequently consider businesses in our city, at most of our city council meetings, that are not in compliance, that are non-compliant in one area or another, whether it be the non-payment of taxes or some other violation of the business license ordinance, we vote on these on a regular basis, revoking business licenses in our city council meetings. The same concept or the same rules should apply or would apply to rental properties. The licenses can be revoked or non-renewed for cause at the discretion of the official that is responsible for issuing the business license. And here's what the issue about the problematic properties is, as I mentioned earlier, that Mr. Green passed an ordinance to address this. But in our business license ordinance as it exists today, for properties considered problematic based on complaints to the Montgomery Police Department, it grants the city the right to suspend or revoke a license under a provision in this ordinance that refers to reputable persons. Reputable persons. And reputable persons provision can be used as defined in the ordinance to address the issue of problematic properties. The revenue administrator would be authorized to consult with the police department to identify what is called a problematic property and exercise the authority to revoke the business license, which would suspend the right to rent or to lease the property. That addresses the problematic properties issue. And an inspection might be required. And this is not to suggest that we want to adopt an ordinance or to put into the business license ordinance mandatory inspections of properties. But we want to make it clear that the leverage of the inspection is always there as a business license holder. Inspection may be required, and the rental business license will not be issued or renewed unless premises conform to pertinent building and housing codes and ordinances of the cities and laws of the city of Montgomery and the state of Alabama. So let me just say that once again. The inspection may be required, and the rental business license will not be issued or renewed unless the premises conform to pertinent building and housing codes and ordinances of the city and laws of the state of Alabama. And I think that, and these are the key provisions of the business license ordinance that suggest to me that there is enough authority right now vested in the business license ordinance to accomplish the rental registry and the rental license enforcement for our city. Mr. Lee, do you have any?
No.
Comments of that?
No, I think, we've discussed it. I think it's there. It's a matter of getting with Barry and enforcing and finding ways to do what they need to do from their administrative way to put it in place.
Now, Barry, no one from the business department is here, from the finance department is here today. Is that good? I'll see you.
See him come in.
My understanding is that they are actively engaged in the work of putting this together, and hopefully by the time we convene again and have another meeting, we will be prepared to report as to what progress they have made in developing the program to move forward with this, so that we could do the proper notification and give people who are in the business of renting properties ample notice and opportunity to prepare for this change in our approach to enforcement in the near future. I see Mr. Carr, you're here. And one of the things that we wanted to do is to also look briefly at one of the other recommendations of the STR report. And one of those was to appoint a senior staff person, either a part of the mayor's cabinet or another senior individual appointed by a member of the mayor's cabinet to work toward the development of a neighborhood revitalization program, a comprehensive program for the city over time. And the other object is to work toward the development of a full-fledged, full-time neighborhood services department with its own senior staff person as director and its own staff to, as the mayor has said, a person who wakes up every morning thinking about neighborhoods and what must be done to address the needs and the concerns of neighborhoods. And Thomas Carr, who was formerly the Chief Housing Codes Inspector, is now carrying another title. And he has been charged with the responsibility of developing this comprehensive neighborhood revitalization effort. And I'd just like to give him an opportunity to give us a brief update or report as to where he thinks we are today.
Yes, sir. If you mind to keep a secret.
What'd you do?
I didn't realize that you were impaired.
Did you kick you weren't supposed to kick? That's the question.
Since I've taken this over, we've done a lot of networking with other departments where we have contact information per neighborhood, per district, for who the police contacts are, inspector contacts, sanitation contacts, so that we can continue to network and get closer and closer. We've had some detailed meetings with the police department to join in on their walking and talking programs that they have. But the biggest thing we've done is we started compiling data from all different sources, and we're beginning to build a database which has a mapping tool with it. And the things that you were speaking of earlier about trying to identify these state-owned properties and how to distribute those back into the tax rolls as they should be. And we're moving along pretty fast on that as far as I've got offers from a couple of third-party software vendors, SDR is one of them. And we're also trying to work in-house with our IT and CIS department to find the best solution for that. I've got a wonderful demonstration I'd like to invite the two of y'all over to look at that is really strong on a third-party vendor, but it really drills down into the neighborhoods and gets the answers to all the questions that you have regarding, as deep as I've developed a mailing list for District 3 for all the owner-occupied properties that are adjacent to state properties, so that it can be a side lot purchase option for them. So I'd love to show that to you. So there's just a lot of work that's going in behind the scenes, but the final product of that database is not finished yet. So we're still working on that.
How are you progressing with the bringing together of departments, of the various departments? One of the main recommendations was that the city needed to create a working group of existing city departments, those departments that all have the same goal of focusing on problems with neighborhoods such as bonds, such as the Clean City Commission, such as the Development Department, such as the Planning Department.
We've named that the Neighborhood Response Team, and we meet on Wednesdays after council and discuss issues here in the both council chambers. And we discuss those issues, and it's got the police department, it's got bonds, there's several departments that are involved in meetings to discuss these issues each and every time. We're keeping an agenda of what we discuss.
do you feel that you're making real progress with that, or are we finding that we're having something that we can identify as a cohesive kind of unit that
We are.
has a mission
We
statement?
are, and we're developing a way to take those specific issues and put those into our call database, so we're monitoring each of those issues as they come up, and we're able to track those. It's coming together right nicely.
Yes.
No, I'm gonna jump in, a little housekeeping. I was looking over the minutes. Can I make a motion to approve the minutes from last time? We
Oh,
just skipped
sure.
over that
Yeah, we
real
did.
quick, and I just happened to see it in front of me. So
We have a motion to approve the minutes from
the May 10th
From the May 10th meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The minutes have been approved.
Now, as you and I discussed before, I think we've made some changes, and you've made some changes, and we've discussed and heard some people, and, I think there's still, I think we'll all agree, still a fair amount of work to do, although we've done a lot, but ironing out some of the fine details, of it, and, I think, certainly getting to the point where we're getting closer, if not there, to, hand this out to the whole council and get kind of meet as a whole council and start addressing some of these issues, or looking at what we've come up with, and as you said, see what everybody has to say about it and go with it. But I think it's certainly a work in progress. I know Thomas and several other folks been moving that way, and I think everybody from the residents and citizens to the realtors to, owners, individuals renting out houses, I think the majority of us all want the same thing. The large majority of us is just making sure we get there in the right way and to the best that we can, not penalize folks that are doing what's right. I've voiced my concerns before about different people. Again, I use my neighbor across the street, which is no longer vacant. He finally sold it, but his house was vacant for 2 years, and under this ordinance, and I don't know the answer to get around it, but he would have to, the proposed ordinance, have to not only pay a nominal $50, which added kind of insult to injury, as I said before, but some of the other requirements of, I'll keep my grass cut, I'll keep this up, that most all of us do on a normal basis anyway. So I want to, in my mind, I like what we're trying to get to, but also not, again, penalize or put more burden on the folks that are doing the right thing today anyway. And that's one of my, I guess, larger concerns about some of this, because certainly, I've got, between me and you and maybe William, we've got more than our fair share of truly abandoned and dilapidated buildings and homes. So, there's a need for it. Again, just trying to figure out the way to best balance it. Would be one of my bigger concerns.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We have crafted an ordinance that we would like to present to the city council, and hopefully the result of this today will be that we will get this out of this committee and into the bosom of the council, and the council can start considering it to address some of the issues that Mr. Lee just raised, and I also see one of our prominent real estate developers here, Mr. Ensko, who also made some suggestions at our last committee meeting. And this is some language from the ordinance that I think might address some of that. This is: vacant buildings shall not include unoccupied buildings which are undergoing construction, renovation, or rehabilitation, and which are in compliance with all city ordinances, codes, and regulations, and for which construction, renovation, or rehabilitation is proceeding diligently to completion. If construction is halted or the building permit is expired, the owner is required to register as a vacant building. Furthermore, and this is Mr. Insco's suggestion, vacant buildings shall not include properties, commercial or residential, that are being actively managed and or marketed by a licensed real estate agent, or that are otherwise under contract with the owner or the owner's designee, who can demonstrate that there is a reasonable expectation that the property will be leased, rented, or sold within a mutually agreed upon period of time. And so I think this would address Arch, the neighbor with the house across the street. It says that vacant buildings shall not include properties, commercial or residential, that are being actively managed and or marketed by a licensed real estate agent, or that are otherwise under contract with the owner or the owner's designee, who can demonstrate that there's a reasonable expectation that the property will be leased, rented, or sold within a reasonable period of time. So that's some fairly lenient language, I think, that addresses the issues of people who would be concerned that if my house is sitting there for 2 years for sale, am I going to be assessed a fee for my property, and I'm trying to sell it, whether I'm trying to sell it through a licensed real estate agent or directly, or if I have designated someone else to sell it for me. The only need would be to produce the evidence that that is taking place, and that property would not be considered vacant property.
Mr. Locke, what's a reasonable length of time?
That would be, I would think, mutual, and we put it here, I think the language says a mutually agreed upon period of time, and if that would be on a case-by-case basis, I would assume. I would not, I don't think I would be interested in attaching any concrete time limits or anything like that. But if I was talking to Arch's neighbor, and he said, I expect that this house will be sold within 6 months or within a year, I'm actively maintaining the property and actively engaged in my efforts to sell the property. I don't think there should be a quarrel about that, my personal opinion. And I think that's why we asked that the language be made flexible here, so that we would not be saying it has to be sold in 3 months or 6 months or something. But of course, it's only language, and it certainly can be changed if anyone chooses the council to weigh in that direction. But we do consider reasonable. I think it should be left to the discretion of the parties involved and with the city's participation in a discussion. Yes, Mr. Lee?
Not sticks out.
Some of we're not going to, it's really modeled after vacant building ordinances from across the country. They're everywhere in major cities. And most of them require some kind of registration. Most of them require some kind of registration certificate to be issued. Most of them require that a fee be attached to the registration. Most of them require that there would be periodic renewals of the certificate over a period of time to continue to encourage, to act as some kind of encouragement to the property owner to be proactive in working towards some kind of solution for the property. We have so many vacant, especially commercial buildings in the city, that have just sat year after year after year after year after year after year. And I know the housing codes professionals here are more acutely aware of that than any of the rest of us, because they see them all the time. They see them every day. And they sit there year after year because there's no incentive for the property owners to do anything good. And that for various reasons. The property values or the conditions of the property or the location, the geographic location of the property may contribute to disinvestment. The low property taxes, which we enjoy, which we all enjoy, which we need to look at, but the low property taxes present no barrier or a problem for someone who just wants to continue to sit on the property, so to speak, year after year, not do anything with it, use it for taxes, tax write-offs, or whatever they do. But we do need to put some kind of mechanism in place, I feel strongly, that says to the owners of these properties that we would appreciate your respecting our city just a little bit more. We would appreciate your respecting our neighborhoods just a bit more. Whether you live in California, whether you live in Atlanta, whether you live in New York City, and you own these properties absentee, we just want you to know that we would like for you to put them to some kind of productive use. And that's the point of all of this. And we're hopeful that we can reach some compromise with our full council to adopt some set of rules so that people have some kind of guidebook as to what we expect in the capital city without that, in our neighborhoods, in our commercial districts. We have to have a funnel attack on the whole issue of blight in the city, from litter to vacant, abandoned buildings, to those that need to be demolished, to those that need to be salvaged and renovated. But we need to say to the world that we care and that we have pride in our city and we have pride in where we live. And it contributes to a greater quality life for all of us. Any additional comments, Mr. Lee?
Don't believe so.
Do we have anyone else in the audience or who's in attendance here with us today who would like to make any statement or comment with regard to any of these things, Mr. Ensign?
I'm confused over one thing.
Yes, sir.
In your early comments, when we talked about the ordinance, you said the person gets a license, and then if the property becomes problematic property, their license is revoked. So they can't renew a license. You're right back where you started. You don't have any enforcement over that property, do you?
If the license is revoked, well, if the license is revoked, then the consequence of that would be that the property could not be rented or leased without a license.
What conditions have been made to say it's not improved?
Well, you mean the physical condition of the property? That would be addressed through housing codes, and all regulations and ordinances having to do with building, maintenance, requirements. But I understand what you're saying, but I guess they were all extenuating circumstances always, I guess. But if the problematic property was determined through police reports and those kinds of things, then the owner of the property's business license could be revoked, which would mean then that that property would no longer be available for lease or rent. And as to the substandard conditions that might exist, they should be addressed by housing codes as they are today.
Just so we're clear, what he was referring to earlier was, what's potential on the books now, what the housing code / licensing department could use that's already on the books. It's just not currently being used as strongly as it could be. What we're coming with probably today out of here, that'll eventually go to the whole council, is strictly the vacant buildings, residential, commercial, whatever, not the renting side of the issue. They're very similar, but they're not. We've kind of separated them, through that, and this is just the vacant building aspect of it, not the renting and problematic tenants and issues along that. Not to say that, and I think that's what Mr. Larkin was referring to as far as if Barry or anybody from the finance department was here as far as licensing. I think that's what they're continuing to work on and look at and find a way to
to implement, again, some of the ordinances that are already on the books that just aren't being fully used. So just so we're clear, but what we're talking about today, or at least coming out of here, is just the vacant building. I think I'm correct in what I said.
Okay, I want to make sure I get this right. What I'm thinking, what you were saying is that if a person that's renting houses, or maybe owner of maybe one or two houses is renting houses out, and then one of their houses become a problematic house, it is up to them to get that problem out of the house
Yes.
before they lose their license.
Yes.
Right. And so that way, if they get the problem out of the house, then they can continue on and rent it to someone else that's more respectful to the community.
Absolutely.
Correct?
For sure.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then if it's a larger company that might be renting out 100 houses, and they have one problematic house that they don't fix and get solved, then there's a possibility that they could lose their license in those 100 houses that they're in a bad situation, correct?
That's an interesting scenario.
Probably by location. You probably
Yes.
register each
Yeah.
location.
Yes, and that's something that,
Okay, so it's per location, so that one location, they won't be able to rent out that place until they get it fixed for them.
I think it would be correct to say that no determination has been made as to, but I think the law does say that these licenses are supposed to be location specific.
Okay.
But again, we're leaving that to the business license department to develop guidelines as to exactly how we would approach enforcing this. And just as Mr. Lee pointed out today, that's not on the table at all for us today. That's in their arena now, and they're working on that administratively.
One benefit of having the rental registration would be something benign, really, unless you really don't, aren't engaged in your property. It would be just having a registered person nearby that you can contact the police, fire, neighborhood, if there's something happening in the house. The owner needs to know, having somebody you can reach, and knowing who they are and having a good contact number, that would be very valuable, I think, and knowing where she lives. I think that's something that would be required.
And I do have another question, and I'll say this here. I'm CEO of Montgomery Community Development Corporation. We pride ourselves in beautifying, building, developing, improving, repairing, and restoring communities, along with the people in those communities. I would like to know, when did things get started to do some, like you mentioned things about trashing places, garbage, all types of stuff. When is something going to be adapted where things get started on that, where organizations can come in, because I have some workers that need work, and we would like to go out and go to some of these places and pick up this trash. And on top of that, if we were to pick up that trash, how much would it cost us to dump that trash in the city dump? Would we have to pay for that, or would the city allow us to dump it free, or things of that nature? Could you expound on that, and when something like that could get started? Because I'm ready to get started right now today. When I leave out this place, give me a place, I'll go do a place and show you what gets done. So you could talk about that. Just
Well, I'm very thankful that you offered that proposal. We're always looking for opportunities or creative approaches to this. I can't give. I wish I could. I wish I knew, because I'm so distressed when I drive through our neighborhoods, and I drive through, particularly on the west side of town, and I see this litter. And I stay on Fairview Avenue, at the intersection of South Court Street and Fairview Avenue. It's always, fraught with litter. I don't know how to answer your question, except I'd like to talk to you after this meeting to see if we can't go ahead and get something concrete resolved with a kind of creative approach. And I tried to do research and look at what other cities are doing. Some cities use jail inmates to go out and pick litter, or people in lieu of going to jail, you do community service, you have to go out and pick up litter, those kinds of things. Some other cities have programs such as what you may be suggesting, of people who may be considered community service workers, or people who are unemployed that may be engaged or contracted with to work parts of town to pick up litter. But we also have to educate our citizens too, along with the physical effort of going out to picking up and disposing of the litter. We need to educate our population of the need to care for where they live and work, so that they don't put the litter down in the first place. And we need to do better enforcement of our housing codes laws, so that we say to people, just a couple of weeks ago, I think I sent a message to your department or your former department. I was on one of my streets. I guess these people collect beer cans, and a number of people do, for sale. And all over the front yard were litter cans. The yard was littered with beer cans, crushed beer cans. And our laws say you can't do that. Our laws that exist today say you have to keep your yard clean. Well, someone from our city, some kind of enforcement mechanism needs to be created, where we go to that house and we say to you, you either clean up this yard, or you'll find yourself in environmental court 2 weeks from now, and we're going to assess a fine against you for your dirty yard. I mean, it's pure and simple. To me, it's not rocket science. We simply need to develop the resources, the man or woman power that is available to have an effective enforcement mechanism that gets into the communities, that lets people know that the city does care, and this matters to us. And we're not going to allow you to do this without some kind of consequence. So that effort, along with the effort of actually getting into the litterless places and taking care of the litter, we need to do it all. And hopefully, again, that's the point of what we're trying to do with this committee, to prick the consciences of everyone, city employees, the mayor's office, everyone, the city council, and citizens alike, that we want to be a clean city, and we're determined to be a clean city, and we need to work on that. And I would like to talk to you to see if there's some way that we can work with you through city council or through our individual council districts to work with people who may need some opportunity to do some work, to do these kinds of things, and to get into the neighborhoods and pick up some of this trash. I certainly would like to talk to you about that.
And that last part of that question, if we were to go out and do a trash pickup in a certain area, and we wanted to dump that trash, would the city charge us to dump it there, or will we be able to dump it there for free?
We already work with neighborhoods that use,
Yeah.
I think we need to commit to that.
But that doesn't answer the question.
The city is not going to be
Yes, I mean,
assessing.
I'm saying we work with, when you're doing a cleanup and you have a specific information, we can kind of work with it. I think we need to contract with you to see if we can.
Thank you.
Any additional comments?
Yeah, that
Questions? Yes, sir.
rental license, if somebody has a lot of houses, do they pay the same license as a person that has one or two?
Again, we're not working on that, right? We're not working on that issue. We have ceded that to the finance department, to the business licensing division, and they will develop the guidelines with regard to that.
I think that was, a lot of the issues. Our business license goes now just for everything. The business license is for a location. I've got a business license for my business, and you've got one for yours here and there. So, and I think that was some of the issues they were looking at, is how you give a business license to cruise at your place of office, but it's licensing 5 houses or 1 house, and you have to get all 100 houses that you lease out a business license for each house, and do you pay the same fee for everyone? I think those are some of the questions and issues that probably have prevented it from being implemented originally in getting around some of that and how to license it, since most of our business licenses are for a specific location. I think it's one of the big hurdles.
I'm sure that is true. That's probably one of the reasons they haven't done it, because they haven't really, no one has taken the time to try to figure out how best to do it. It could be that it might be necessary to amend the ordinance. The provision in the ordinance that says that each license has to be location specific. Well, that's really impractical if someone owns 20 houses or 25 houses or 100 houses, and they're renting them out to say that you got to have a license for each separate parcel. So I think that it might be necessary at some point when the business license people talk to us about what they need to amend the ordinance with regard to rental properties to say that it does not have to be location specific. That if you own, let's say, 1 to 10 houses, then it's 1 fee. On separate parcels, it's 1 fee. If you own 25 houses on separate parcels, it's 1 license fee, and 1 license, and rather than 25 licenses. I just think that those are the issues that we have to work through. But we want to do what's practical, we want to do what's fair, and we want to do something that works, something that's effective. And the effort is not to be punitive toward anyone. The effort is not to be burdensome for anyone. It's simply to make Montgomery a better place to live for all of us. I think if there's no further business, on the committee and no further comments, yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Martin, I would like to suggest in our areas where we have a lot of litter, I would like to suggest some type of camera technology placed in that area, letting people know that if they litter, they're on camera, and they will be charged or fee. I think litter comes through cars, most people throwing out the window.
That is
that technology would stop it. And even on the highway, we don't have any camera technology. I think we need that. Yes.
Well, we've been sued for having cameras.
We are, the neighborhood response team, researching how some cities do it with areas that become illegal dumping areas. You know, more where there's an isolated area and people are starting to dump their commercial or personal waste. And
So
we'll see we're just researching what some other cities are
You're
doing.
researching that right now.
Cameras for areas that have a lot of illegal dumping and they're isolated. It's not very easy to, monitor it because it's vacant.
And I think we discussed it. The litter, unfortunately, it's going to need a holistic approach, not only from us trying to do more in getting the people that we see throw out stuff, but we can say, and I've said this, and we can say what we want to say, and yes, there's people that drive through that from Kentucky or wherever that might throw litter on the streets, but at the end of the day, we've got Clean City Commission that goes out and picks up tons of trash, and they're just on a big circle, and they go throughout the city, and they go back the same place they just picked it up, and it's back out there again. We got to be honest with ourselves. That's coming from everybody in this room, the citizens of Montgomery. Not literally everybody in this room, but the citizens of Montgomery are the ones doing it. I mean, we've all seen it. So we got to look in the mirror as much as we got to look at the city to enforce it. Is quit throwing out your cigarette butts, quit throwing out your cans of whatever. I mean, when we spend, we have the, I guess, Red Eagle Honor Farm folks. Literally, the mayor every couple months will talk about how many pounds of trash we picked up, but it's every couple months he's saying the same thing in the same locations. So it's frustrating, and I get you. And like I said, I think we need to. Claire said your option, Claire. I mean, it's the whole picture, and it's going to take a lot because nobody wants to deal with it, regardless of where you live, west side, east side, or south, north. It's frustrating on several levels.
And we're going to have to also engage our citizens to understand that they have a responsibility too for their own neighborhoods.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman in our neighborhood who every morning, his big, beautiful dog, and he and his dog do litter patrol every morning in the neighborhood. He's retired, military man. Of course, he has the time to do it. But we did have a program that we tried to start a few years ago called Let's Get Our Hands Dirty. And basically what we're saying to people is that the city services are not for these because the resources are simply not there. We have to accept the premise that we have not generated revenues commensurate with the needs in the city. And so we're going to have to generate more revenues. And I see the finance director saying, yes, yes, yes. And we must, and that's just a fact of life. And we haven't talked a lot about this in our city council meetings because nobody wants to talk about raising revenues. But when you look at, when you compare us to other cities in Alabama, when you compare us to other metropolitan areas in Alabama, you find out that we're selling ourselves short. We are. We're the capital city. The city of Birmingham has approximately 7,000 to 9,000 to 10,000 more residents than we do at this time. But they have an operating budget that is twice the operating budget of the city of Montgomery. I know that sounds crazy, but it's a fact. Just to look it up, Google it. Our operating budget is what, $242, $3 million, something like that. Birmingham's is well over $400 million a year.
Mobile, Huntsville, same way.
Yes.
And you mentioned the revenue shortfall. The cities around the state of Alabama, Montgomery ranks 18th in terms of revenue per citizen and what we're charged with operating. So, resources are scarce.
Yes, they are. Most definitely they are. And of course, Mr. Crabb and the mayor's office deserve a good deal of credit for being able to operate at the level that we do operate with the resources that are available to us. I realize that it requires a lot of agility and a lot of creative thought to be able to do that. And I know one of our regular columnists writes that the city is broke, but we know better than that, don't we? The city is not broke.
We're stretched.
Just stretched to the limit. Yes, ma'am.
In reference to revenue, I advocate to different people, legislators and stuff about raising property taxes, and every time I bring it up, they say, no, that's not going to happen because of this, and that, because people don't want who have a lot of property, don't want the property raised. So what is it as citizens, what is it, we talk about we need money, we pay the least property taxes. People move to Alabama because we hate our property taxes are so low. What is it that can be done to jumpstart somebody or put a fire up under somebody to at least consider raising the property taxes a little bit, because that would help out a lot?
It would. Yeah, you're exactly right. I think we all know that the state of Alabama has the lowest property taxes in the nation. Except possibly for Mississippi. I don't know how Mississippi is doing these days, but we have the lowest property taxes in the country, and in our state, our county has perhaps the lowest tax rate in any metropolitan area, I'm sure, in the state of Alabama. Is that correct?
Certainly for schools, it's
Yes.
the very lowest.
Yes. So it's a matter of education. Once again, just as with the litter and the Clean City Initiative, we've got to educate people. And I think that when we have public officials or politicians, if you will, who are dismissive of the idea that we can raise the level of thinking for people to say, to demonstrate to them the need for additional revenues. And if we want to continue our city's growth, if we want to become, that shining city on the hill, which we know we already are, we have to tell our citizens that you get what you pay for. And someone raised the issue of the street sweeping in one of our council meetings a couple of weeks ago. Why we're not sweeping streets? Well, we don't have a budget for sweeping streets because we don't have the resources they say to put into that. But we need to look at priorities and maybe shift some priorities and get some street sweeping done. But the point of the matter is, there are smaller cities, such as in Tuscaloosa, who do have street sweeping programs, and they go out into neighborhoods and they keep the streets clean. They have figured out a way to do it, and we can figure out a way to do it too. But with regard to the property taxes, it's the politicians who say things like that, because they are afraid that they would become politicians no longer if they ever raise the issue. And I believe that the responsibility of people who hold these public offices is to tell people the truth and to say to them, we could have a better street sweeping schedule if you were willing to pay for it. But look at what we pay and look at what other cities are paying. Just compare. Even the sanitation service that we have here, one of the best in the nation, and one of the lowest price fees attached to it of any city in the United States of America. Those are the services we get that we're really not paying for. So we need to stop saying when someone says, well, we have the lowest property taxes. You look at a Piper Road, they raise the mills for property taxes for their new school system. And you look at the school systems in Alabama that are really prosperous, the ones in the suburbs of Birmingham. They have voluntarily gone out to the polls and made a decision, a conscious decision, that we want to support our schools adequately. And in all this debate about what's going on with the schools in the city of Montgomery right now, this debate that we're in the midst of now, I've heard no meaningful discussion of the funding issue. And we cannot talk about improving education unless we deal fundamentally with the fact that they're the most severely underfunded schools in the state of Alabama, in a metropolitan area. So,
I have one more question.
education.
I have one more question. You also talked about the demolition of houses in the area and neighborhoods. How do I get a list or find out if we've complained about this house? How do I know whether this house is on the list to be demolished, or who can I talk to about that?
Guy immediately to your right.
Okay, we need to talk. Okay, thank you.
On that house demolition, what is the budget now, and do you plan on raising the budget for that? And I would also like to get a list of those houses that are up for demolish, so possibly to bid on some of those to demolish.
Guy immediately in front of you.
Right, okay. Okay, I'll find that out from him, and I thank you very much.
There you go. Did you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think the number is $400,000 that we had in the budget for 2018. We will have a similar number in 2019. At some point, the process slows down, and inspection can probably speak better to it, but you know, there's kind of the low-hanging fruit that are easy to get through the council, absolute violations, and easy to say these need to be torn down. And we've worked through a lot of those, and then you get to the ones that are a little more expensive, maybe asbestos abatements involved, and different liens to take care of. And at some point, it's going to get a little more difficult, and we may not be able to use that much money in the budget. I don't think we'll be there in 2019. I think in the budget we present you guys, it will have something pretty comparable to the figure we had this year.
So the answer is $400,000 is what it is now.
And they're not gonna raise it.
But once again, by comparison, the city of Birmingham's is $1.5 billion
Exactly.
in the same category. So therein lies a difference in how we operate and how they operate, how the cities operate. And then there are people who also complain about too many demolitions, and so people can make a good case that we shouldn't be tearing down everything. And maybe we could find some way to hopefully to salvage a lot of these houses that we think ought to be demolished. So all of these things are things that we're continuing to work on, and hopefully we'll have some kind of comprehensive effort that will really make a difference in the foreseeable future. And since Mr. Crabb is here, we were talking earlier about the rental business license. And I realize that nothing definitive has been developed at this time, but I just wondered if there was any update or progress report you'd like that you could.
Yeah. Well, we just continue to discuss some of the legal issues. We continue to talk with the city of Huntsville, who is has got something of an attempt to license these cities, or license these landlords, but they don't have the inspection requirements. They're also trying to throw the Airbnb rentals in under that license provision, although they're having issues with their zoning departments because the houses aren't zoned to allow for commercial businesses. Same thing Tommy Tyson brought to our attention. Some of the ordinances are going to have to be changed to provide for that. It's
a work in progress.
It is a work in progress, and it's not that we're dropping it, it's just that it frustrates y'all when we put an ordinance on the books and then we don't enforce it, and we're struggling with how can we enforce a landlord that's not getting a license. We can't close him down, we can't kick his tenant out like we can a business. If a business isn't paying their license fee or not operating properly, it's easy for us to go and close this restaurant, close that store, because of some of the laws involved. It's, you know, how do we deal with passing this law where we know it's going to be so difficult to enforce? But Mickey's talking with other cities that have been looking at it, dealing with it, and we're trying to find something we can get that you guys would be happy with.
Any additional comments, any more questions from any of our citizens or stakeholders?
Well, just a couple of things. I was going to make a motion to adopt the ordinance that you handed to us to get it out to the full council. And I guess along those lines, do we want to just present it to the council, or do you want to have it on the agenda? I mean, I certainly think if it's on the agenda, we'll certainly carry it over and let everybody look at it more, but I didn't know. I'll leave that up to you as far as how you want to.
How do you feel is the best approach to it? To just put it on the agenda, or just to distribute it among council members and give them a chance to
My thought would be just to present it to the council, and we can, discuss it when we do our report, next week, and then give everyone some more time to look at it, and then look at having, if that's acceptable to you.
That's acceptable.
All right, then I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed ordinance with just presenting it to the council at the next meeting.
We have a motion on the floor to present the ordinance as written to the council at our next council meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion has been adopted. So I guess all that's left is to adjourn. So
Move to adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn. All in favor?